This week on Jerusalem Dateline, July 1st comes and goes without a move toward annexation, but Netanyahu says it's just a matter of time. And Shalanu, the Hebrew TV channel owned by God TV, is suspended by Israeli authorities, and the latest archaeological discoveries that shed light on the biblical time of Ezra and Nehemiah. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello, and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl, filling in for Chris Mitchell. July 1st has come and gone without Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu making a move to annex parts of biblical Judea and Samaria as laid out in President Trump's peace plan. But according to reports, Jerusalem and Washington are still in discussions and will make a decision on annexation soon. Netanyahu met with U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman and White House envoy Avi Berkowitz about the deal and says it's just a matter of time. For weeks, Israelis, the U.S., and the international community have been waiting to see what would happen on July 1st. That was the earliest date Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would bring the plan to extend Israeli sovereignty over 30% of the West Bank to a vote. But Netanyahu said the process is continuing.
With Avi Berkowitz and Ambassador Friedman and members of their delegation, I spoke about the question of sovereignty, which we're working on these days and will continue to work on in the coming days.
Trump's peace plan allows Israel to extend sovereignty over 30% of the West Bank and leave 70% for a future Palestinian state. Israeli state-owned broadcaster Khan released a new map showing areas to come under Israeli civil law. Netanyahu also reportedly insisted that the biblical cities of Beit El and Shiloh would come under Israeli law in the first stage. In a taped address to the annual Conference of Christians United for Israel, just days before the deadline, Netanyahu didn't mention annexation, instead talking about the virtues of President Trump's Middle East peace plan.
It makes clear that the Jewish people have a valid legal, historic, and moral claim to Judea and Samaria, and it supports Israel's sovereignty over the Jewish communities there.
Netanyahu's partner in Israel's unity government, alternate Prime Minister and Defense Minister Benny Gantz, praised the annexation deal, but he told his Blue and White Party that dealing with COVID-19 is Israel's priority.
Together we will win against the coronavirus, and together we will deal with the economic and social consequences of this medical phenomenon. Anything unrelated to the battle against the coronavirus will wait for the days after the virus.
But analysts question if Gantz is really committed to going ahead with the annexation plan. Miri Maoz Ovadia of the Yesha Council, which oversees the 450,000 Israelis who live in Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, said they are concerned by the delay.
We understand that this is a window of opportunity which is very short. It's an opportunity to change history, to extend sovereignty on Judea and Samaria, the Jordan Valley, the historical homeland of Israel. We appreciate the fact that we have such an amazing friend, President Trump, who is leading this change. And we have full trust in him that he can help to change history and that we still have time to make this change and extend the sovereignty.
When President Trump recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights last year, Israel thanked him by naming a community after him. But recently, vandals ripped the letters off of the sign from the community. Tuli Weiss, founder of Israel 365, said he believes it was meant to undermine the friendship between the U.S. and Israel. And so in honor of America's Independence Day, they're fixing the sign and planting trees to beautify the area.
The 4th of July in America is a great holiday, and in Israel also it's a chance for us to show our appreciation, to celebrate the shared friendship and the relationship between Israel and the United States.
We'll have more on the Golan Heights and the people who live there later in our show. As the United States marks its 244th birthday, many Americans are thinking about their independence and freedoms. The Constitution's First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion. But CBN News reporter Paul Strand looks at whether the Founding Fathers were trying to keep government free of religion or religion free of government when they separated church and state.
The phrase wall of separation between church and state has come to mean keeping God or his believers from having a big effect on government and public life. But that's not at all what the Founding Fathers were thinking about when they were separating church and state. They were afraid of what so many of the old world countries had, a religion established by the state as its one true religion that would tyrannically rule over the faith and conscience of every citizen. For as the Providence Forum's Peter Lilback puts it,
they recognized having a monolithic church was a dangerous thing.
Because it made the king not only their physical sovereign, but all-powerful spiritual ruler. Before the Pilgrims fled England,
the Pilgrims' pastor was executed because he made the statement that Jesus Christ is head of the church. And the monarch leader, no, I'm head of the church. You're dead.
American Minute historian William Federer.
Now, their big fear was the federal government was going to follow the blueprint of every country in Europe and pick one national denomination.
Consciously, therefore, they were separating the church from government.
But that was strictly to protect the churches and each believer's faith and conscience from the government. That's what Christian historian Eddie Hyatt says Thomas Jefferson was talking about when he wrote the letter that first used the famous phrase.
He said that the First Amendment had erected a wall of separation that would protect them from any intrusion of the government.
But the idea of God, he's on both sides of the wall, and he's welcome there, and he should be.
But today, a complete flip.
Those who once believed in this really high and impregnable wall of church and state, we now see the government reaching over that wall and saying, but don't preach that text to the scripture.
All of a sudden, the government's regulating religious activities, which was what Jefferson said they would not do because of separation of church and state.
The founders would be so distressed to see how that statement has been turned on its head.
Lilback says we have to remember what our founders intended.
This is a theistic government, so God was not separated from government. So any interpretation of the First Amendment that takes God out of government is turning the whole story on its head.
Because the founders believed a nation founded on liberty could only stay free if its citizens were godly people. As wall builder's David Barton points out, believers in God have their eyes on eternity, and it makes them practice self-control.
When you're God conscious, you realize, I'm going to have to answer to Him for what I do, and it limits my bad behavior.
They were creating a nation for a free people, but also for a virtuous people who would govern themselves from within according to Christian values.
And the founders knew they also needed the perfect law of a loving, all-wise God.
There was a clear understanding that the government needed to have an ultimate check and balance even beyond the people that ran it and their elections, and that is the transcendent law of God. And so that is why when we look at our Declaration of Independence, there are 4 references to deity.
But then came the U.S. Constitution, which some say is a godless document because God isn't mentioned in it. But as soon as they were finished with it, the founders called for a day of thanksgiving to God.
Now, if their intent was to get rid of God from government, boy, did they miss their point, because they turned around and thanked Him for everything that they had, which shows the utter historical absurdity of the godless Constitution.
And God isn't really absent from the Constitution or its authors' lives.
They are not godless. They are, in fact, people at the end of their very work. They said, in the year of our Lord, 1787. The last words of the Constitution are reference to Jesus Christ. It's no surprise then that the ultimate motto is, we are one nation under God.
Coming up, the Hebrew TV station is booted from Israeli cable television after losing its license.
CBN Films presents.
It's a very corrupt period in Jewish history at this time.
Written in stone, Jesus of Nazareth.
The emotion is one thing, but the scientific truth is something else.
The life of Jesus changed the entire world.
Jesus walked on this particular street.
But what does archaeology say about where he lived his life?
It's an authentic location in the life of Jesus.
Join Gordon Robertson and unearth remarkable discoveries.
Is it really the place where Jesus spent his last night on earth?
Explore where Jesus traveled.
Jesus went from one Jewish place to another Jewish place,
where he performed miracles.
And he raised the little girl from the dead.
And where he was tried by Pontius Pilate.
Tradition is wrong.
Get Written in Stone, Jesus of Nazareth. For a gift of any dollar amount, call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/writteninsstone.
That changes everything.
The people of Israel need your prayers as they battle the COVID-19 virus. In CBN's free guide, How You Can Pray for Israel During the Coronavirus Pandemic, you'll discover ways to pray for Israel's leaders and government officials, healthcare providers on the front lines, Holocaust survivors and the elderly, struggling families, and more. Get your free copy of this valuable prayer guide. Call now or go to cbn.com/pray4Israel today.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Nepali Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Several weeks ago, the Israeli cable company Hot began broadcasting Shalanu TV, a Hebrew-speaking channel begun by Christian broadcaster God TV. Now, the chairman of Israel's Council for Cable and Satellite Broadcasting suspended Hot Cable's license to broadcast Shalanu TV, claiming Hot's application was misleading. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell spoke with God TV's Ron Cantor about the cancellation that's attracted international attention from the Jerusalem Post to the New York Times.
Ron, thanks for joining us right now. Asya Biton, the chairman of the Council for Cable and Satellite Broadcasting, said that Hot misrepresented Shalanu on its original application. And this is the statement he issued. He said, the channel is aimed at Jews with Christian content, in contrast to the original broadcast request. How did you reply to the chairman?
Well, he knows the truth. He's the one who actually issued the license. If you look at the license, and we've provided a copy to CBN, it says very clearly that our audience, this is the permission he gave us, Kahal Hatzofim B'Israel. That means the audience of Israeli viewers. There's absolutely no stipulation that it had to be just to Christians. Why else would we be on the air here in Israel in Hebrew? So it'd be wonderful if he apologized. But the truth is we had permission to do exactly what we did. We have never misrepresented anybody in this thing.
Well, Ron, we know that Hut has decided not to reapply for a license. Why did they do that, and what is your relationship with Hut Cable?
Well, I think it's good. We had a great conversation on Sunday evening, and they said they were going to go back and ask for an extension so that we wouldn't be suspended. And when that didn't happen, we reached out to them and they said, well, we've kind of changed our mind. We're just not going to ask for a new license. Now, without them asking for a new license and with the old one canceled, that leaves us without a cable network to be on. So it was actually a brilliant strategy by those in the government. What they did is they knew that they could not legally deny us a license. We're a democratic state. We have freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And they knew that. And even in their cancellation notice, they said, well, just reapply and we'll look at it honestly. And they made it seem as if we would get a new license. But then what they did is they went and put incredible pressure on Hot, who was already under pressure from Yad Lachim, an anti-Messianic group, and even from some of their customers who don't want us on the air. I don't hold any ill will against Hot. They did what was in the best interest for their business. We're a small client, but they cut us loose. I'm happy. I would have been much more upset if my government, my democratic government, actually silenced us. I'm glad it came from Hot and not from the government. But make no mistake, there was tremendous pressure put upon them.
Yeah. Ron, you know, when this all started, there was an accusation that Shalanu was proselytizing. Can you address that and then tell us where does Shalanu TV go from here?
Well, first of all, I hate the word proselytizing because it gives images of pressuring people, enticing people, forced conversions, forced back. That is not what we do. Believers don't do that in Israel. Anybody who watched the channel, you would see music, you would see teaching, and you still can at Shalanu.tv. We're staying on the air. We're just moving to the internet where we're going to reach a lot more people. But, you know, Israelis would be sharing their story. And it's important to understand, we're not missionaries from another country. We're Israelis. I moved here when I was 38, but my kids have been in the Army. My wife was in the Army. The host of all of our TV shows, they served in the Army. They paid their tax. They love Israel. I would say that Shalano is probably the most pro-Israel, Zionist, anti-BDS channel on Israel, but they never really gave us a chance. But it's okay because we prepared for this. We knew this would be a possibility. We knew once we got on the air that it was possible that people would get upset. And so we are going to now take the funds that HOT is going to return to us, and we're going to invest all of that into Shalanu.tv. We're going to buy advertising in Israel. In fact, we're going to reach probably 100 times more people than we would have on an obscure cable channel. It's ironic. The very people who resisted us because they want to keep this message from getting to the people of Israel, they've shot themselves in the foot, because now we're going to reach a lot more people. And Israelis don't like being told what they can and cannot do. So the more that the ultra-Orthodox say, you can't listen, you can't watch Shalanu, the more people are going to go to their internet and type in Shalanu.tv and see what this is all about.
Up next, who would want to live along the hostile Syrian border with Iran trying to attack?
Now, for a limited time, you can get 5 of CBN's critically acclaimed documentaries. Experience the rebirth of the modern state of Israel.
The historic bonds between the Jewish people and the land of Israel cannot be broken.
Relive the battle for Jerusalem in the Six-Day War.
Jerusalem is yours, forever.
Discover how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
When people need us, we volunteer and we come and help.
Explore the world of Israeli technological innovation.
We're people of dreams. God gives us dreams. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation.
And understand the biggest land dispute in history.
Many Palestinian Arabs claim that the Jews stole Arab land. But is that the real story?
This exclusive Israel DVD collection can be yours for a gift of $40 or more. Call now or go online to get your Israel DVD bundle today.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
As we said earlier, Israel named a community on the Golan Heights after President Trump. But who would want to live so close to a hostile Syrian border with Iran trying to attack? CBN's Scott Ross visited the Golan Heights recently and met some Israelis who say they wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
And what are we looking at here from this point of view? So the Sea of Galilee is down, straight down here. Right in front of you, you have the mountains of Tiberias. Right after them, behind them, you have the mountains of Nazareth. And then as you go to the right, to the north, you get to the Upper Galilee. And of course, this is where most of the Gospels took place, around the Sea of Galilee.
Amitai Elon owns a holiday village called Natur at the top of the Sea of Galilee on the Golan Heights.
Why have you chosen to live here? If you want to live in nature, surrounded by beautiful nature and the sound of birds, you can go to the Golan, Galilee, and you can go to the Negev desert.
Now this is a farm.
So it's a farm, it's a space that we use for a lot of things. We're sitting right now in a geodesic dome that is a greenhouse. Sometimes it will hold an event, a venue, or a party, or a camping of a big family. It's kind of magical.
But as beautiful and peaceful as it is, the borders of Lebanon and Syria run along the Golan Heights. Iran, too, is trying to set up bases on the Syrian side nearby from which to attack Israel. How far are you from the Syrian border?
Very close.
There's no threat from the other side?
Except for 67 war and 73 war, this place has been the safest in the country.
Have you grown more apprehensive since Iran has gained a bigger foothold near the Israeli Golan?
If you look at the big picture of the history of this place, thousands of years, we had extremely ups and extremely downs, but we're here.
Further north, we visited security expert Kobi Maron, who was the former Israeli military commander on the Golan Heights and now lives here.
With the unstable situation in Syria, with the Iranian deployment, it's critical for Israel to be here in the Golan Heights and stay here, because with so many challenges, I can't think about the situation that we could be on the 67 line.
Israel captured the Golan Heights in 1967 during the last 2 days of the Six-Day War. The Israeli-Syrian border along the Golan is about 55 miles long. Are you under a constant threat here?
We feel very safe. The Israeli deterrence is very effective. The Iranian regime had a project. They plan to have here across the border 100,000 Shiite militias with the Hezbollah. They plan to have Air Force bases, Navy bases, intelligence centers. They plan to have an advanced industry to produce precise missiles that can be a real threat for the center of Israel and the strategic spots of Israel. So that's why we saw in the last 3-4 years that Israel attacked this Iranian deployment and destroy, and we become very successful.
Some 50,000 people, more than half Jewish Israelis, live on the Golan Heights, but internationally it's considered occupied territory. In March 2019, however, President Trump broke with tradition and recognized the strategic heights as part of Israel. Israel named the community in his honor, calling it Trump Heights.
It's a dramatic statement. It's unbelievable. It's so important for positive, sure. A significant declaration because it came from the strongest and the most important Israeli allies, United States. With the Trump recognition about the Golan Heights, there is a big challenge for the next Israeli government. I think we have to bring 100,000 Israelis to the Golan Heights in the next 10 years.
I met Eliyahu Berkowitz in Katzrin, the largest city on the Golan Heights. He immigrated to Israel 28 years ago from New Jersey and moved to the Golan about 7 years ago. Are you at all intimidated by the events surrounding Israel and specifically the Golan?
We're always worried about Israel, but there's a lot to be optimistic about. I don't know what people think of the Golan. They built bomb shelters here when they first settled it, and they've never been used.
Known in the Bible as Bashan, some 635,000 tourists visited the Golan Heights last year, 3/4 of them Christians, to see its stunning views, historical sites, and wineries.
We've always been alone, and when I see Christians interested in Israel, that's something totally new. It gives me incredible optimism. I'm very happy about it. I think I'm helping them to be better Christians, and they're certainly helping me to be a better Jew.
What way?
Because I want to stay here in Israel, and they're helping that. And also, I'm not here just for me. I'm here for the whole world. The Torah was given at Mount Sinai, and we were supposed to be a light unto the nations. If you keep it to yourself, then you're breaking it.
Ilan, who is also a tour guide, summed up Christian commitment to Israel and the Golan Heights.
If you came here between 2000 and 2005, we had kind of an intifada happening here. It was empty, except for Christians.
Why do you think that is?
That is the perspective, that's all. Your connection to the land, is this from the Bible, or is it from CNN, or from a narrow perspective of few years of troubles? If you're connected by narrow perspective of few years, you would say it's dangerous, I won't come.
Do you believe that God is watching over Israel?
Absolutely.
You believe that?
The fulfillment of the prophecy is every step you take in the country. It's hard to ignore it.
Still ahead, rare artifacts uncovered from the biblical time of Ezra and Nehemiah.
CBN Israel, standing with Israel and blessing God's people. Join us. Get breaking news from the Holy Land. Witness biblical history uncovered. Learn the true story of Israel through groundbreaking films. Help Holocaust survivors and other Israelis in need. Be part of the redemptive story God is telling through His chosen people. CBN Israel. Together we will stand. Join CBN Israel today.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Even during a pandemic, Israeli archaeologists are still uncovering pieces of Israel's ancient history. One recent find is giving new insight into the biblical time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Emily Jones has that story.
Israeli archaeologists working in the city of David in Jerusalem have uncovered 2 rare artifacts left over from the Babylonian destruction of the city, a clay seal and a seal impression, or bulla, with the Babylonian symbol on them.
The 2 items that I'm holding in my hand, a bulla and a seal, are a major contribution to our understanding of the nature of Jerusalem during the Persian period.
Most archaeologists thought Jerusalem was a small, empty city after the Babylonians destroyed it in the 6th century BC. Dr. Gadot says these artifacts tell a different story.
The 2 items that I'm holding are evidence of not just people living here, but actually bureaucratic activity, administration popping out again.
They also found other evidence of life in Jerusalem during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah.
These 2 items join other things that we found, like, for example, a large quantity of fish bones that tells us that people were eating here food that got from distant from the sea.
Archaeologists will continue to excavate in the city of David to piece together Israel's past.
That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.